we canceled the book deal because it just wasn't working. And I ended up getting another book deal. That's another story. But one of the things I did in that situation was I didn't follow my own rule, which is one of the big rules that I have in the How to Write a Novel in 20 Pies book, is I didn't follow the rule of listening to your gut.
You are now listening to the podcast where authors inspire listeners to become authors, the Going North Podcast. I'm your host, certified self-leadership trainer, best-selling author, and book enthusiast, Dom Brightman. And you're going to be listening to a different author that will inspire you to join the business of immortality, known as authorship. Now let the fun begin. Today's episode is sponsored by the GoingNorthPodcast.com shop. It is going to help you have northbound direction to your own success. If you want a great inspirational quote like advance others to advance yourself, or today a reader, tomorrow a leader, heck, even some puns like pile on and always fully booked on your tote bag, mug, hoodie, heck, even a t-shirt, and many, many other items, head over to GoingNorthPodcast.com, click on the shop tab, and cop yourself some merchandise indeed. And that's GoingNorthPodcast.com/shop. And today on the highlight reel builder for authors known as the Going North Podcast, we got another super special, awesome human for you today, courtesy of my good buddy Neil Thompson. That's right, indeed. My good buddy Neil from the Ask Uncle Neil episode, where he had that awesome kids book highlighting the science of hair. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. Especially those with that magical melanin, indeed. And he's hooked me up with one heck of a super special, awesome guest today because, my goodness, usually, depending on the guest, 75% of the time I joke with them pre-recording saying, yeah, we're talking about you, your books, and anything referencing pie. Well, today's guest has actually got a book that actually talks about how to write a novel in pies. 20 of them, no less. Because today's guest, folks, you're in for a treat that's good enough to eat 21 times over. Got to give it the Baker's dozen, not Baker's dozen, because she's a best-selling author as well as an editor, a writing coach, as well as an associate professor, indeed, at one time or another for a few magical years. So she's got a whole bunch of wonderful knowledge in the noodle, and she's going to help you to get more boodle, as in more books out there in the world. So let's give it up for the amazing and wonderful, the one and only Amy Wallen. How you doing today, Amy?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Don. Nice to be here.
Oh, it's nice to have you here indeed. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. It's like, all right, cool. You talk about pie, so that means it's good. I don't have to even mention the references to pie because it's by default. But hey, introductions are kind of like a slice of pie because you're not required to tell the whole audience or give the audience the whole entire pie once you're only supposed to give them a slice. And there's a whole lot of pie left. So mine filling in the audience on the rest of the amazing Amy yourself and how you became the one for Amy that you are today.
How I became the wonderful Amy that I am today? Well, I will start maybe backward and how I started making pies, and then connect that to all of the writing stuff that you already mentioned about my books. And basically, this most recent book came about because I am a pie baker and I'm rather passionate about it. And people seem to really like my pies, which is a good thing always. And I realized that at one point, one of the ways I survived writing my very first book was baking pies. And I took breaks by baking pies and gifting pies, etc. And I just thought I should, since I'm already a writing teacher, maybe I would write a book about how I survived writing my first novel and got all the way to publication and did it through pie.
That's right, indeed. So is March 14th your favorite day of the year?
I do get a lot of people sending me happy pie day. Yes, I do get that. It's sort of like a birthday. So
Ah, that's what I'm talking about, indeed. And funny enough, it's actually hilarious because the thing is, like your current book, the 20 Pies, at least at the time of recording anyway, it's like your first novel, if I'm not mistaken, was titled Moon Pies and Movie Stars, no less.
Right? I seem to have a pie theme going in my life, I think.
That's right, indeed. The funny thing is, if I'm not mistaken, you're not even a fan of Moon Pie. You just mentioned Moon Pies because you got a lot of folks in your writing clubs that love Moon Pies.
You're exactly right. Yeah, I am not a fan of moon pies, and that was kind of a big lesson I learned in my writing life is if you're going to put some kind of food in your book and you want book clubs to host you for your book parties, make sure it's a food you really like because you're going to be eating a lot of them because that's what people serve at your book club parties. And so, yeah, maybe that's why I subconsciously wrote a book about pie and put a lot of recipes in there that people could follow. But I think maybe my next book might have peanut M&Ms in it. That's probably where I what I should have done.
Now, don't worry, you can keep up the pie theme if you want. You're like, hey, you can talk about, hey, how to turn your moon pie into a flapper pie.
Or I could have a moon cakes. I need, yeah, some other food item.
Ah, ain't nothing wrong with that, indeed. That's what I'm talking about, indeed. So, any idea where this love and obsession with pie came from? Was it from your parents that they love pie too? Because I believe it was a chicken pot pie is your favorite.
Oh, you're right. Actually, no, my parents, neither one were really cooks. But maybe that's why I became one was because my mom wasn't really much of a cook. And I loved chicken pot pies when I was a kid. And I ate those little frozen ones with the little cocktail onions in them and those hideous little, tin pans that they came in. They were frozen, Swanson's, I think. And I got a little older and still loved that comfort food of a chicken pot pie, but I wanted something a little more sophisticated. So I started experimenting and making my own and gradually learned how to make the filling. I did pretty good at that, but crust was another story.
uh, so, was the frost that bad? Did you wake up in Albuquerque?
Well, I just learned that the crust was, easy as pie is a lie. So there. And I think that applies to novels too. Novels are not easy as pie. That's a lie too. So
Yeah, that's true. It's right indeed. Because hey, I think it was probably was a Jim Rohn quote. It's like, yeah, these things, these habits, this discipline, it's simple but not easy. It's like, hey, it's on paper, like, this makes sense, but it's like when you try to do it, it's like all the sabotage starts kicking in. So, my goodness, so what led you to finally decide to join the business of immortality by publishing your wonderful writings?
well, gosh, that's a big question because it kind of happened. I always wanted to be a writer. When I was a kid, I always wrote. And when I went to school, I went to journalism school, and then I got a job at an advertising agency, and I wanted to be a copywriter, and just on and on. And then at some point, the character in my first novel, Ruby, just kind of grabbed me and said, "Hey, I have a story to tell you." And I became the typist for that story. And then next thing I knew, 7 years later, I'd written a novel. So then I started pitching it out in the world and ended up with Penguin as my publisher, which was pretty awesome. But I make that sound easy. And again, kind of like pie, it's not that easy. But I write all about that in my book as well and tell the story about all those challenges it takes. And I guess somewhere inside, I was always a writer. I think a lot of writers will say that. And you just write because you have to write, not always because you want to. There's definitely times I love it, but there's definitely times I want to become a UPS driver instead.
Yeah, you sure about that, especially during the holiday season?
Oh, yeah, right. I know, and I'm not sure I can lift 50 pounds. I'm not sure I can lift 20 pounds. So you wouldn't get your packages delivered anyway. So,
Well, she can lift 20 pies. Ha!
oh, good point. Yeah, maybe I just deliver a pie with every package, and then they would forgive me for not delivering their packages. Plus, I don't really look good in brown. So,
But she does look great in yellow. That's what I'm talking about, indeed. That's what I'm talking about, indeed.
yellow crust.
Heck yeah. So my goodness, so being able to get one of the big publishing houses, the big fours they refer to usually. So my goodness, how was that process? Were you just teaching folks how to write for years on end and finally did all the writing and you were able to finally get your crust on top of the pie to complete and they were like, hey, we're a penguin. You talk about pies. It's P and P. It's meant to be together.
Oh, right. Exactly. No, it was not really at all. Kind of in a different order of that too, because well, first it's hard to get a teaching job unless you have published. So it's hard to teach how to write unless you've published, especially in the university system. And so was doing some short story sort of teaching, and then I got what did I do? How did I do this? Let me like think for a second because really um first I had to get an agent, and that was a process in and of itself. And again, I didn't really know what I was doing, but I jumped at all kinds of different ways of connecting with people. I really believed you had to network and meet people. And a writer friend of mine who was working on her book at the same time, and she was also looking for an agent. She's like, no, it'll happen over the transom. You have to, it goes with luck. And it was really funny because I went through all my connections and ended up getting my agent by just sort of over the transom, which means basically I just started sending stuff out blindly to agents saying, I think you'll really like my book. And then in the meantime, my friend who said it has to be over the transom, she got hers by through a connection of hers, and that's how she got her agent. So I think it's just sort of a matter of you just have to try everything and try a lot of it and not give up. I mean, that's really the heart of my book, the How to Write a Novel in 20 Pies. The Sweet and Savory Secrets of the Writing Life is the subtitle, and it's about perseverance and surviving that writing life of just keeping it going. Perseverance applies to writing a book. It applies to looking for an agent. It applies to the editing process. It applies to trying to get a publisher. And I had a really, really great agent for that first book. And she found me a really great publishing house, a publishing deal. And so that was a great story. But then, every story has an arc and then a big, you have a lot of setbacks, and I had some of those too. So, my novel writing story and getting published had some ups and downs, and Penguin was a great way to start. And then I had to learn how to be a business person after that, which was a whole new thing for a writer. And it's always kind of interesting how writers are required to be business people, because that is, we would much rather just sit inside our little garrets and write. So yeah, that was sort of how I got there, was through perseverance. So, and I believe in promoting that and helping support other people to do the same thing, just to keep going, don't give up. Easier said than done. Again, easy as pie is a lie.
Sounds like that might be the episode title. Easy as pie's a lie. And that's coming from a baker herself.
Right?
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. It almost sounded for a second that was going to be like one of those amazing race scenarios where it's like you and your friend was like, yeah, we're going to be rivals. Yeah. Whoever gets an agent first wins. Yeah. And then it's like, oh, no, it's like, you both got to live. It was a happy ending. You both were able to get published.
Yeah, no, it was, but it was also one of those big lessons. And we have expectations, I think, and sometimes you just have to believe. You just have to keep believing in this whole process, because there is no, one of the secrets I have in the book is I mentioned that I'm going to give away all the secrets to how to write a novel and then get published. And, really the secret is there are no secrets. You have to just keep working, just keep doing it and keep going. And so I think that was really one of the things I had to learn early on, is to keep going. And it's hard to keep, your head up when there's, lots of obstacles in the way, and naysayers, and searching for agents is hard, and lots of rejection, lots and lots and lots of rejection. So I don't know. Again, writers or artists, and we're very sensitive. So I don't know why we're supposed to be rejected all the time, but that seems to be what we set ourselves up for. But that's why we eat pie, or why I recommend pie.
That's what I'm talking about, indeed. That's what I'm talking about,
There are
indeed.
sorrows in blueberry pie.
Uh, is it because it's blue and dark?
Well, I do have a chapter that's about black, and I think that the recipe, I call it black and blueberry pie, and it's the one about looking for agents. So, so it is about, yeah, being pretty black and blue through the process.
That's right, indeed. Of course, the fact of one of your perfect chapter titles, the fact that dating and rejection aren't just for lovers anymore.
Yes, lots of rejection. It is sort of a dating game. You go out there, put yourself out there, you're vulnerable, and just waiting for somebody to love you. And yet, it seems that sometimes it seems like they never will. Finding the right finding the right agent is a lot like trying to find a mate.
Definitely hear that, indeed. Especially since if you find one, it's like them getting back to you and in the time you desire. Maybe not like instantaneous, but hey, it's like within a decent amount of time, and then as if they like your work and as if they actually see it too. Because if they're good, they're probably flooded with other manuscripts.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, they get so many. So it's hard to get through that slush pile, so to speak, or that big mountain of submissions, because everybody, there's so many people that have a dream of writing a novel, and so many people are trying to get through it. But agents have readers, so they do get, they have help getting through those big piles.
Sweet. That's what I'm talking about, indeed. Getting through those piles, indeed. So, what helped you to get through the piles of rejection and setbacks on the way to finally hitting the publish button?
Well, pie, of course, helped me get through, but but I think it was really, I had some good encouragement. I did have a passion for wanting to get published. I had worked so hard on that first book. Didn't know. I mean, a lot of, your first book in some ways is maybe easier. They say the second one for some people it's harder, because the first one you're naive, so you don't know what's around the corner, or you don't know. You think, oh, one rejection, I'll just keep going, and then 20 rejections, like, well, I'll keep going. And I think that is where, you have to sit back, eat pie, keep going. I always kept at least 3 letters to agents out there at all times, so that when I got one rejection, I would immediately send out another submission, so that I was always had, if I got a rejection, could think, well, there's a couple more out there that I haven't heard from yet. And so that kind of kept me going, looking at the perspective of there's still more to come. And there's so many agents out there that, there you can't really get send out and submit to all of them. There's just so many. So it is about, you do have to work the hard work and do the research and find the agents that would like your book. What is the most, I think some people may send books out or send out submissions willy-nilly and just kind of flood all the agents, and it doesn't, sending it to an agent who might not be interested in science fiction or or thrillers or something isn't gonna do you any good, because then you're gonna get a rejection because that's not what they're interested in. But really doing the research on how to, and you have to kind of learn how you do the research, but doing the research on who would be the right fit. Again, it's kind of like the dating game. I've never done online dating, but it's sort of that same idea from what I hear from my friends, is that you look through all of their profile and see what kind of things they like that you might have in common, and reach out. And again, once like in the dating game, all my friends talk about that rejection. So same sort of thing, but you keep going till you find the one, and then maybe it's not online dating that does it, and you think that's the way you're going to find someone, but like my friend and I, it's somebody's brother that you get introduced to, and then that's how you meet someone. So again, sort of that same story.
There you go, indeed. There you go, indeed. So, my goodness, so the good news is, with all this rejection, you get to help other folks. You get to be the good shepherd in one way or another by coaching, indeed. So, here you're a writing coach in addition to all the other wonderful stuff that you do. So, my goodness. So, what's the process like working with you as a writing coach?
Oh, sure. Actually, one of the things, again, I'll sort of start backward and then lead into what I usually do. But one of the things, because we were just talking about the agent search, is one of the things I do for people is after I've read their manuscripts, is I will help them learn how to do that research for looking for agents. And often some people are so busy with, the rest of their lives, that I'll also do for, fees, that I'll do some of that research for them and then give them agents and connections on how to connect with them and why they might be a good fit for them. Again, it's always up to the person. But starting at the beginning of what I usually do, I actually would call myself more of an editor than a coach, in the sense that what I like to do best of all is read entire manuscripts and give feedback. And I do a very thorough job. I'm not a line editor, but I am an overall editor. I feel like my forte is the big picture. I like to look to see if all the threads are connected, the story is flowing, the plot is doing what it says it's supposed to do, the characters are growing and moving the way they're supposed to. There's obstacles, all the parts of a novel that are necessary are there. And of course, this always depends on what kind of novel it is. Is it a plot driven novel or a character driven novel? I usually focus more on character driven novels, because that's what I write. So that's what I'm best at. But I give a very thorough editorial letter that you get from me, and I also put margin notes on the document, and then I send it off. We have a big discussion, and we go from there. Sometimes what people like to do is go off and try to do some more revision. And I'm a big believer in revision. I think that's one of the most important ways to find an agent, is to have the cleanest, tightest manuscript that you can. And I then sometimes people will continue to work together after I know their whole book. It's a great relationship to be able to then work with them when they rewrite a scene. They can send it to me and say, is this what you see, that I need to change? Did it work? Did I do it right? Is it working for, the whole picture? Because now I know what their novel is about and how it works. So I can give that input based on what I already know about their work. And then that's kind of where the coaching aspect comes in, is because I do work with them in trying to do the revisions all the way through. And then sometimes I wait a few months or a year, and they send me the entire manuscript back, and I reread it again for that second draft and try to get it to that really final tight draft that they can start sending out for submission. And we work on creating a cover letter, query letter, actually. And that's the one where you write to the agent and say, would you like to see my manuscript? And then we get the query, then is usually where then after that, the agent writes back and says, I'd like to see 50 pages or 100 pages or the whole manuscript. And it's on these query letters that where agents and where, either you don't hear anything back if they're not interested, but this is where the rejection process starts. And then we work through why is maybe they get 20 rejections. I will work with the client on, what kind of feedback is the agent giving, or what is it that, you might want to still work on? What did you still want to tighten that we had talked about that maybe you still want to do even more work on? So it's just sort of a long process like that, and a, positive focus on making it the cleanest, tightest manuscript that it can be. I try to focus on what the author's intention is and not what I might want it to be. I think it's always about what the author wants, but I hopefully can guide them to creating a beautiful work that's their dream.
Sweet. That's what I'm talking about right there, indeed. Mighty kind of you, too, doing the research for them, indeed. That's right, indeed. If you decide to cough up some extra dough because of the time required, that'll be expended to help them get closer and closer to the goal. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed.
Exactly.
That's right, indeed. It's like you're
And
a
then there's
personal
always
trainer
a
for
pie at
writers.
the end, right? Personal trainer for writers, right?
Yeah, that's right. And this one comes with pie.
Well, yeah, and then you really do have to get a personal trainer after you eat all the pie. So
There you go. This one will stay in business forever.
right?
It's like, hey, look, my abs finally came in. Here's 6 pies for you, buddy.
Yeah, writers aren't always known for being the most athletic, considering how much we have to sit. So pie probably doesn't help with that, but it does help with the attitude and the comfort. It's about comfort.
Heck yeah, indeed. That's what I'm talking about. Indeed. That's what I'm talking about. Indeed. So, speaking of comfort, you've been on quite a few interviews already promoting the good work that you're doing. So, my goodness, is there a question that you wish folks would ask you more often when you're on the microphone?
Ooh, well, I guess the only question I can think of is what might I do differently? Although I'm not sure I know the answer to the question. But what might I do differently in my writing life? And so, do you want me to answer that question? I'm asking a very tough question of myself.
Oh, you got it. You got it. You can do it. You got 6 pie
I can
abs. You'll be got it.
6 pie abs, 6 pie abs. I do have 6 pie abs, quite literally. What would I do differently? I think in some ways I might spend more time writing what I want to write than what someone else often wants us to write. I think there's a lot of expectation out in the writing world, and we get a lot of input. I think that's why I'm careful as an editor to make sure that I'm giving the input that the author, follows what the author intends. Because I know that when my first book was published, I got a 2-book deal, and which is a really big deal and really, really cool and exciting for a new debut author. But they wanted to tell me what book to write. Like, they wanted to tell me what my second book was. And I went along with that because I really thought, well, one, I was just so excited that, Penguin wanted me at all. And so I was like, well, they must know better than I do. So I tried to write what they wanted me to write. They wanted me to write a sequel to my first book. And I hemmed and hawed about it when we were writing the contract. And I realized later, because I failed at writing the book. I really did. And I was very, it was a tragic moment, of course, in any writer's life. And we canceled the book deal because it just wasn't working. And I ended up getting another book deal. That's another story. But one of the things that I did in that situation was I didn't follow my own rule, which is one of the big rules that I have in the How to Write a Novel in 20 Pies book, is I didn't follow the rule of listening to your gut. And I think that's such an important one. And of course, gut has a lot to do with eating pie. Maybe that's why I eat so much pie. But I think that it's just so important to listen to your gut. And had I listened to my gut when I was signing that first contract and said, no, I didn't want to write that book, somehow I did know, like I said, I hemmed and hawed about writing the book they were telling me to write, but then went along with it so that I could get a contract. I think if I had to do it over again, I would rethink that and I would listen to my gut and go with what I wanted to do. I was already writing another book and it wasn't anything at all like what my first book was like. So, and I wish I had written that book. And that's one that ended up in a drawer instead. So maybe someday I'll go back to that one. But I didn't listen to my gut. So that would be something I would do very differently, and I would listen to my own advice. I need to take my own advice.
Yeah, that advice is sometimes the hardest to take. It's like you wake up next to a kettle and then you turn to the other side and it's a mirror. It's like, oh, it's been me this whole time.
Right?
That's right, indeed. It's a selfie party. If there's a pot on your head, it's game over. It's a success. But yes, indeed. And yeah, that's probably one of the major traits that's probably been through like a lot of the interviews on this podcast with a lot of folks is just listening to your gut, listening to your intuition, because hey, you could be a head person all day, a heart person all day, and the heart connected to the gut and everything. And sometimes it has a deeper wisdom than you think you have yourself. And voila, it was proof. It's like, this book, it's a one and done. There's no sequel in it. If you get a sequel, it's going to be a character you don't like, even though the readers will like them until they do. So it's like, yep, gotta listen to that. Good indeed. That's right, indeed. Because
Right.
it
Yeah,
probably wouldn't even be a good product anyway if you're able to choke it out somehow anyway, right?
exactly. Yeah. No, I think that's very true. And I think that, I mentioned before about writers having to be in the business world. And, I was dealing with business stuff. And I think even with business stuff, we have to listen to our gut just as much as we do when we're writing and we're listening to, what we should do with a scene or we should do with something else. So it's sort of all connecting all of that. And it's still part of the process because the writing does come from our hearts and our guts. Not so much our heads, but sometimes part of our head too.
Uh, Sometimes they come from the pants.
Right? The seat of the pants, a lot of it. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. The pants get bigger the more pies you eat.
Yeah. So I guess that means since you're a pantser, that means the pants just keep getting bigger and bigger, metaphorically.
They do. They do. And they just keep that's how I get through a lot of things. Is the seat of my pants. So they're pretty tough. I have like canvas seat of my pants instead of, easy cloth.
It's all good. That just means more room for creativity indeed. So my goodness, so what excited about for the future for the next 6 to 12 months of your writing and all the stuff that you're doing?
Oh, what am I excited about for the next 6 or 12 months? Well, I have a writer friend, another author, who's a local San Diego author, and she's asked me to read a novel of hers that she's submitting. It's actually a sequel, but to her series. She's a very successful novelist and has several books out, but she asked me to read hers, and so I'm going to read hers, and in exchange, she'll be reading mine. And she's a thriller writer, and I've written my first mystery, which I don't know anything about. So I'm very excited to have somebody who actually knows about that sort of plot driven world, and can give me some input. So I'll be working on that book, and that book is a menopausal Nancy Drew. So
Oh man, I think the third one is at least has the menopause as a theme. Let's see, two past authors. I think Pat Duckworth, she's the first one where she's writing a novel, or at least she has plans for a novel where it's where her and I guess her character and like four other women friends are going through menopause, then another one talking about menopause, and then it's like, oh, then this one too. So it's, I guess we're getting into the menopause era.
Yeah, or you must be talking to a lot of women that are in their late 50s.
So you heard that right, folks. So if you're a guy, you have to press the play button somehow because she's gonna put you on pause.
Use a pun and go to jail.
Well, some call me Lamar Punson, so I think I'm in trouble. He's throwing for 6,000 yards. I'm throwing for 6,000 puns. He's quarterbacking. I'm pun backing.
Well, I think you get more bees with pies than you do with puns.
So instead of a pun on a bun, it's a pun in a pie, huh?
Right?
Well, speaking of a pun in a pie, if your wonderful book, even though this is probably like an easy question, if considering the title, but I'm asking anyway. If your wonderful book, How to Write a Novel in 20 Pies, if that book were a food, what would it be and why?
What would it be and why? Oh gosh, well, I think it would be a strawberry rhubarb tart. And it would have some beautiful whipped cream decorations on top because it's about celebrating. And it should be a mixture of two different flavors, a little sweet and a little tart, so that we can learn about the joys and the challenges of writing. And it should be in a wonderful, flaky, whole wheat crust because it's going to be good for you and also beautiful because it's celebrating your future as a novelist or a memoirist. There, I did that off the top of my head.
Just like whipped cream off the top. They say the cream rises to the top. And she is the cream on the pie. There we go. She gave it a different flavor pie. It wasn't just, oh yeah, the answer's pie. It's like, oh, let's go to flavor. Let's go to the details. That's the reason why. I was like, yeah, she'll get you covered like a blanket. In this case, cover you like crust. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. So my goodness, we're coming down to the magical question that every guest gets to receive. And that is if you know, wake up tomorrow and you were 25 again, but you're still in the current year, what advice would you give to yourself?
I'd go with the listen to your gut again. I just feel like that was one of my biggest lessons in my life for almost everything. And I would say, relax, relax, and eat more pie.
Ah, there you go, folks. That's right indeed. Bake a pie, bounce it on your head, to bake another one, lay down while it's bounced on your head and put the pie on your belly. That's right indeed. So that way your gut can listen to the pie, giving the gut knowledge, and then the gut absorbing the pie knowledge. That's right indeed. And if you do this on March the 14th, on Pie Day, it'll really be a great celebration, a great pie day indeed.
I like the way you connected all of those. It was like a pie. Good job. Good job, Dom.
That's right, indeed. Well, thank you so much indeed. Well, I already know folks are hungry in more ways than one after this episode. If they gotten to this part of the episode. So for those who are hungry for your content on top of pie and keeping up with your journey, what's the best way for folks to pull out their forks and spoons to keep up with what you're doing?
Oh, they can look me up on my website, amywallen.com. And they can sign up for my newsletter. I have all kinds of writing retreats that I just got back from France, where I did a writing retreat. I'm doing another one next May. I have a writing retreat coming up in Aspendell, which is the Eastern Sierras during when the aspens are turning colors. I have a lot of things going on, lots of different workshops. And I send out a newsletter about once a month if I get around to it. And I update everybody on workshops and things. Sometimes things are on Zoom, sometimes they're at my house and my living room, sometimes they're at some other venue and around the world. And so I would love for people to come and join me. And that's also where you can find out about any of my editing services and things like that too. So lots of things going on. And I'd love to hear from people. I like to communicate. My email address is on there as well.
Woohoo! Well, there you have it, folks. Reach out to the angelic Amy herself, y'all. That's right, indeed. Catch up with all the stuff that she's doing. Make sure you put on your bib before you send out that email to her so you can eat all the pie that she has to offer. And she's got recipes, indeed. That's right, indeed. Bonus points if you have a propeller hat while you're wearing the bib and eating the pie.
Did you think these up in advance, or did you come up with them off the top of your head?
Just like the cream of the crop is from the top of the head.
All right. Good job, Don.
That's right, indeed. But before a penguin carrying a pie towards the table of the person wearing the propeller hat and the bib, any parting words before we close up shop, baby?
Parting words, no, I just look forward to working with anybody who's interested, and I would love to have anybody join us. And I hope that anybody that's out there who wants to write a novel will pick up the book and believe in themselves and their words, start the process and make it happen. And if you're already in the throes of a novel, pick up the book and it'll help you keep going. It's all about learning how to have fun while doing this long, hard journey. And anybody who's already written a novel but want to send it out, there's all that last third to still be read. And of course, there's lots of recipes. So along the way, you get to eat lots of pie and think of all of Dom's wonderful puns.
If you're hearing this part of the episode, that means you're one cool individual. Thanks a bunch for tuning in, and if you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to share it with at least one other person in your network. Bonus points for 3. And be sure to check out the backlog too while you're at it, because there are hundreds of wonderful episodes to choose from as well.